Welcome to Connecting the Dots, a non-traditional legal program with your host and trusted advisor, Liz Myska, your guide through the web of life's dilemmas.
Welcome to another edition of Connecting the Dots. I'm your host, Liz Myska. And today I have the distinct pleasure of having two individuals who have volunteered with my walking initiative, Walk Fit, and who also were guides for 2022 White Cane Day. Welcome, you two recruits. I'm going to allow you to introduce yourself. First, the young man.
Hi, Liz. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. My name's John. I'm a forthcoming BU undergraduate student. I've been with WalkFit for just over a year now.
And
I'm Kailu. I'm a second-year student at UMass Medical School, and I have been volunteering with WalkFit for the last couple months and was also a sighted guide for this year's White Cane Day.
Awesome. I want you to tell my audience why you volunteered for WalkFit initially. What drew you to it, and what keeps you coming back? John, I'll start with you.
Well, to be totally honest with you, I did not know anything about WalkFit nor anything about the visually impaired community when I first started to join WalkFit. I saw it as a volunteer opportunity, and honestly, as a high schooler at the time, a junior, I did need some volunteer hours, as many high schoolers do know. So at the beginning, it was not something of a kind deed for my heart. It was more of a task to do. But then I started to get in with the WalkFit crew, almost like a fish on a hook, and I just realized that there's so many mobility challenges that the visually impaired experience in large urban cities. There was also another aspect to that I thought maybe I could explore further by being with WalkFit.
Awesome. Kailu, do you have the same reaction, or what prompted you?
So I originally wanted to join WalkFit because I had a grandfather figure when I was younger who had complications from glaucoma. And he used to be super active and then eventually lost his ability to really be independent and walk outside, even though it's something he really enjoyed. So when I first came across WalkFit, I thought it was really cool that I could potentially be a sighted guide and help other people regain some of their independence and enjoy some of their previous hobbies that they had when they were sighted. So I thought that was really cool, and I've kind of been able to continue doing that through volunteering and all these events, so that's been really awesome.
Thank you both for sharing that. Again, I think that most people, they think of themselves as altruistic, but they want to give in, they want to get. I guess is the best way to put it. And I think they're startled when they realize, wow, that's more than meets the eye. And again, pun intended. So what keeps you coming back is, if I can just put words in your mouth, is the learning, the awareness, or the people? Is what would you say?
Both. I think both. I think that I originally came because I wanted to learn, and I came because I thought it was fun to experience all these new things. I'd never been blindfolded before or had to walk with a cane. And then what kept me coming back every weekend was I really loved the community and the people who always came to WalkFit and wanted to interact with other people and teach and also learn themselves.
Amen to that. I mean, that's what I love about it too. But John, what about you?
The learning is definitely a big part, but I have to say the community is the best part. When I first started at WalkFit, it didn't dawn upon me that the visually impaired community didn't just consist of people who had been visually impaired for their entire lives. It was regular people, that over time started to lose their vision, and you were just starting new connections. I was starting new connections by coming to WalkFit. It's just a whole new community of just regular people, and that's what keeps me coming back to WalkFit.
And I think I've told the two of you, because I always do, that the reason that I was curious about physical activity in particular was when I was sighted, when I was fully sighted, I was physically active. I mean, not in the, I wasn't an athlete by any stretch of the imagination, but I enjoyed hiking, and I was a dancer. I took ballet and tap and jazz, and I took jazzercise, and I was always a walker. Even when I drove, I used to leave my car home one day a week, and I worked here in the city in Worcester, and I lived fairly, within walking distance, but a couple miles, and I would get dropped off and I would walk home because I just enjoyed that sensation. And one of my biggest fears was when I started losing my sight was I wasn't going to be able to do that anymore because I couldn't see. And then there's that, for me, the whole phobia about, I didn't want anyone to see me with the white cane, because I just felt that I would be discriminated against. So it just was very odd how it all worked out, that I was really interested in physical activity. I didn't know how to go about doing it. Shortly after I started using the white cane, I also hurt my back, and my chiropractor suggested that I join a pool, go to a pool. And I thought, well, how am I going to get there? How am I going to get to a pool? And who's going to help me in and out of the pool? So I was very fearful, and I didn't know what people were identifying resources, but I did not know how to deploy those resources for me. Anyway, what ended up happening was I became more active, and I was approached by one of the students at the optometry school at Mass College of Pharmacy, who was an athlete, who was sighted, who wanted to, quote unquote, work with the blind, in particular blind athletes. And when he indicated to me that he wanted to do that, I said, well, instead of working with blind athletes, let's design something for the blind ordinary. Because ordinary people need that physical activity, but they also need that connection to other human beings, because that was another thing that I noticed. As soon as I was identified a certain way as a visually impaired person, whether I identified myself that way or others did it, I just felt that I got pushed further back in the cubbyhole, and that people did not know how to approach me, and they were afraid to offend me. So that I was excluded, but I was also doing that to myself as well. So the optometry student and I, we just came up with this, we brainstormed and we came up with this walking initiative, and we weren't sure, it was an experiment, we weren't sure how it was going to work out, who was going to come, but we didn't want it to be one person lording it over another person. We wanted it to be companions. We wanted to have everybody included, so it wasn't just limited to the volunteers being, students or young people. We wanted to attract everyone. We didn't want it to limit it to to visually impaired people per se. We always welcome people on wheels. So anybody that is differently abled, as we call it. So wow. you guys are the beneficiaries of lots of work that has been done by others who came before you, but others who have stayed in. And so again, I want to thank you both because it's painful for me when you guys leave me, but I know that it's likely that you'll come back, meaning, maybe not physically, but as we experienced on the TalkFit call, at the beginning of the medical student clerkship a week ago. You heard voices of people who are no longer physically here in this region. They've gone on with their lives, but they're part of us. They're part of the group, and so again, I'm kind of nudging you towards think of this in terms of inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility. I mean, that's really what we're doing. Even though we're naming it WalkFit or we're naming it White Cane Day, we're really creating something. We're really creating a community that includes and wants to include a variety of people of all different ages, backgrounds, professions, persuasions, etc. So I will silence myself and I will ask you about White Cane Day. Let me just set it up. Actually, I'll let you set it up. So John, what's White Cane Day?
Well, every year, that time in October, mid-October, we have a day, and Worcester we're very grateful that Worcester recognizes a day to spread awareness about white cane users, visually impaired people across the city and maybe even across Massachusetts. And so with your helpful guidance and with the cooperation of so many counselors and dignitaries from across the city and even as far as Boston, we were able to organize an event where we could show people what it's like to be visually impaired and mobile across the city of Worcester.
Okay. And Kailu, tell about who you were guiding and what you learned from that person, what that person learned from you, and what it was like, I guess.
So I was guiding, I believe his name is Kurt,
yes,
who is somewhere high up in the Lions Club
yes,
organization, and he was really awesome. I think that he was a little nervous at first when we first approached him with his cane and the blindfold he was going to be using. But, and I remember he said, I'm a little nervous, but I'm excited because the Lions Club and the organization helps a lot of people who are blind, but I've never experienced it before because I'm a sighted person. So I'm interested to see how, what life is like, or to walk in their shoes for a bit, so to speak. And it was really awesome being able to walk around Worcester with him. And basically pointing out all of the hazards of walking in Worcester. For example, the truncated domes that aren't really, that are apex and not face towards the crosswalk, indicator buttons and crosswalk lights that don't make any noise whatsoever, or some that don't even work. For example, at one point in our path, there was a crosswalk that was very busy. It was one of the main roads. And no matter how many times we pushed the crosswalk button, the light never went on, and the cars just never really stopped. Mm-hmm. So that was an example of one thing that we had to kind of talk about and explain. And he was like, wow, I never really realized that there are so many things I take for granted as someone with sight. And it was really awesome to be able to walk through that and experience it together.
Mm-hmm. I'm just going to continue with you, Kailu. Your route, so to speak, mm-hmm. to guide your dignitary started near the Worcester Police Station, mm-hmm. crossed Major Taylor Boulevard, went kind of deviated behind Mass College of Pharmacy, up School Street to Main Street, and then down Thomas Street when you got to the state courthouse, back to Major Taylor Boulevard. And quote unquote, when I design the trail, I mean, I don't have to design it. I mean, these are real city streets, but I wanted to give you, and you and your dignitary, an idea of what could be encountered in just a block of downtown.
Right.
So no accommodations, some accommodations, great accommodations, but query if the accommodations don't work, if they're really accommodations. And again, how is a visually impaired person, unless they're trained in all of these modalities, are they going to know? And are they always going to have a sighted person to assist them? Because it's not only the dignitary is learning about the VIPs, but you as sighted individuals, when you learn how to guide, we're all different, and we all have different skill levels as well. So now I'm going to turn to you, John, because your dignitary was a traffic engineer, so to speak,
yes.
And I was diabolical, and I put them in Kelly Square. So
oh yes, you did, Roger from the Massachusetts Department of Transportation. He was a wonder to guide around. Usually just some prefacing. When I'm guiding someone new who's been blindfolded for the first time, we usually take it slow, but he picked up the pace. So when we were like halfway through our route that you designated for us, Liz, I realized, oh crap, I've got to make up a new route here because we're going way too fast. We can't come back early. So we explored even more of Worcester because of that. And it was just, I loved being with Roger because he was able to fill me in on a key detail. In Kelly Square, as of White Cane Day, I can't say for right now, but on White Cane Day, there's a missing pole right there that causes the crosswalk traffic on one side of Kelly Square to be inoperational, as Kai Lu pointed out, there's multiple places like that in Worcester, but specifically in Kelly Square. And I was asking Roger about it. It's like, when could this be fixed? And he's like, it could take a long time, weeks, you know. And at the end, who's, you know, it's a big hazard for visually impaired when you don't have audible or visible warnings to drivers that somebody's about to cross the street. But who do we throw the blame on? The Massachusetts DOT for not fixing it quickly, or maybe someone else for not putting this very risky corner for higher priority. And again, there's so many things that need to be fixed about Worcester streets. You know, you can't. How do you prioritize one over the other?
Yes. Well, that's why I deliberately put you in Kelly Square, because Kelly Square, your route, because Kelly Square has been redesigned. But I'm always asking, redesigned for whom? For the cars, yes. Yeah. But it really is a deterrent to pedestrians. I mean, whether the pedestrians are sighted or not sighted, because and I again, Kailu, you mentioned at the beginning about the traffic sounds, the traffic noise. Well, again, in Kelly Square, you know, the traffic is just
coming from all directions.
Coming from all directions, and is oblivious to anyone, you know, on the sidewalk or potentially in the crosswalk, because everyone is hell bent on on driving through right, yep. and driving through.
Yield to other cars, but not to the pedestrians.
Exactly, exactly. So what happens, and again, this is my take on it. What happens is that people don't cross it, and so the designers think, well, we did a great job because look, there's been less fatalities and less accidents. Yeah, because nobody's going in there. No pedestrians are venturing, because they're assessing it's just too dangerous to do it. So that's not really a victory. That's not really a win. That's a better design maybe than there was before. But the car being lording it over the pedestrian. So it's kind of like the car convenience as opposed to pedestrian safety.
Definitely. And if I had to pinpoint one specific flaw about Kelly Square, it's the RRFBs. And I'm, of course, talking about rectangular rapid flashing beacons. Drivers will know what I'm talking about. You go up to an intersection, there's no stoplights right there, but you'll see this small white or yellow flashing light. And that light is supposed to indicate that somebody may be crossing the road. Unfortunately, these lights are very small, and in the daytime, as a driver myself, I find it particularly hard to see. And for that reason, when you approach a crosswalk that has an RRFB, many times you won't see cars stopping for you, even though, even if you're guiding a visually impaired person, you got that white cane on the road, they don't see the white cane, which is issue number one, but they don't see that light either because it's not super visible to the drivers. And so you've got a very risky situation right there where you don't have something definitive to make those drivers stop, like a red light.
Yeah.
Yeah, was that your experience too, Kailu? I mean, I don't think you encountered any of those.
Not during my path that I took for White Cane Day, but I know that there have been other cases where we have those flashing lights and maybe the first car sees you, but the cars behind that car, the first car, don't see you. And they drive right around that first car into oncoming traffic just to get around, and then they almost hit you because they don't see that you're there.
Right. I think you're thinking at Walk Fit a couple of weeks ago. I
think it happened like 2 or 3 times where like, a car just started they just laid on their horn, went all the way around the first car, and tried to turn onto into oncoming traffic to get around you, just so they could go maybe get to the next red light a little faster.
Yes. So John and I experienced we got up close and personal with the stop sign.
Oh yes.
And the rectangular
rapid flashing beacon.
Okay, all right, thank you. We at Russell Street and Elm Street a couple weeks ago, because again, having driven a majority of my life, I was very, very accustomed to looking at signage and paying attention to what's in front of me. And John was very helpful because now, because of my visual field, because of my retinal disease, I don't have the wide scope. So John was describing what a driver would see and what he would see from from the perspective of a driver, but also being on the sidewalk and wondering, would that be something that would attract your attention? And we discovered likely not. Likely not.
No.
So that again, it's a catastrophe in the making, and it's a collision in the making. So, and what I always say, and that's why White Cane Day is so important to me, walking in somebody else's shoes, but thinking in terms of why do you not see blind people walking around, on a frequent basis? Well, because when people are uncomfortable with a situation, or they don't have the skills, they avoid the situation, because they're like, I don't want there to be a disaster. I don't want to be injured. I don't want to suffer bodily harm. And have people say, poo on you. You shouldn't have gone out. You knew you didn't. You didn't have those skills. So that's why all of these initiatives become so important to communication. For between human beings, to understand what are the deterrents, what are the phobias, how can we address it, as opposed to everybody, go to their different corners, and again, that's really easy for VIPs, because we go to a corner, we stay in a corner, and unless we have the skills to venture out, because otherwise, if we don't have the skills, we're staying in the corner because we don't know what is out there in front of us. Anything else that you would like to talk about with regard to your experience with VIPs, and how you would incorporate this into your future?
Right now, I'm helping my visually impaired friend. He's now a freshman at Quinn Sigmund Community College, and it was through WalkFit that I met him. And now every week we're always talking. I'm trying to help him get through his studies. This is his first time going to college, and again, with the visual impairment, it poses a huge challenge to him with his assignments and with navigating around. Now he has classes in different buildings. Today's actually his first day starting in a new class, so I'm eager to go back and talk to him, see how the day's been going for him. So and I have to attribute all this fun conversations I'm having with his friends to you, Liz, and to the people before you, Liz, that your friend from the MCPHS who wanted to work with blind athletes, all that because of WalkFit.
Well, all that because of openness, human beings being open to experience and learning. Yeah, absolutely. That was beautiful, John. Thank you. Kailu, I don't want to put you on the spot, but...
Well, I definitely agree with the openness. I think that in order to make this a two-way or a multi-way conversation, people have to be open to learning and open to teaching, and sharing their experiences about what they've experienced, because even though during some of our exercises we get blindfolded and we use the canes, as sighted people, we get a short experience kind of walking in your shoes for a little bit, but we will never fully experience all that people who are visually impaired will experience. And I think that the only way that we will get some semblance and understand a little bit of what you guys go through every single day, every minute, every waking hour, is by listening to your experiences. And we can't do that unless you all are willing to share and people in the community are willing to talk about it. So.
Also beautifully said. Beautifully said. Thank you. Thank you. Openness, and I think it's also curiosity and inquisitiveness too. How do people do this? Again, it's thrilling to think of all of the things that I have learned in my 14 years of being a VIP, a visually impaired person, that, as John said, I never would have known any of these people. This is my theory. Never would have known any of these people if I hadn't been diagnosed and become legally blind, because I would have lived my sighted life, and there was nothing wrong with my sighted life. It just wasn't as robust and as sensitive and sensory driven as my VIP life is. So yeah, I'm definitely the beneficiary of all of these different experiences, and if I'm anything can be said of me. I amalgamate everything. Like I stick it all in, and I was kind of like, well, and this is my science analogy too. I'm like an amoeba. It's going, it's going over there, it's going over there, and it's kind of like, I don't know which way I'm going. I'm just going. Any final thoughts before we wrap?
I just wanted to touch upon Kai Lu's point about not being able to fully witness what your life is like, Liz, or any other visually impaired person's life. I had the pleasure of being taught by a mobility instructor, and the way I'll never forget what he said at the very beginning, when he blindfolded us. He said, "I need to be very clear. This is not a simulation of blindness. At any moment, you can remove that blindfold. It's off, and you're back to the sighted world." He didn't use those exact words, but that's the message he was conveying. And that's so true. At WalkFit, we mostly focus on mobility and community, but there are aspects we can't cover. Sometimes, the social setting. I know I've been hard-pressed to describe social settings because sometimes it's awkward to bring up, oh, this person has a smile on their face or a frown. How do you in public announce these kind of things? And these are just small, important details that, as a sighted person, we take for granted. We're able to, quote, read a room. And so for the visually impaired community, that must be very hard. And other things too, bathrooms. We've going to a store and pulling out a $5 bill instead of the $10 bill in your wallet. I know someone else taught me that you can. There's ways of navigating around that.
Mm-hmm. Kai Lu, any?
I completely agree, and I think. But I think that, despite everything we've said about not really being able to experience everything you guys have, I think that I at least am extremely lucky to have been able to have had the chance to experience at least a little part of it through all of our walk fits and through White Cane Day and other events. It's been really, it's been an amazing learning experience to be able to participate even a little bit in that. So I've really enjoyed everything through WalkFit, and also even this 2-week clerkship that we're part of as medical students. It's been really awesome.
Well, thank you, and thank you both. And we'll have upcoming guests talking about the clerkship as well. But it's almost like each thing begats another thing.
Mm-hmm.
And again, when the clerkship came about because of COVID, there were no offerings for any of the students. That's how the clerkship came about. Mm-hmm. But that has been such an opportunity to bring VIPs, visually impaired people, have them recount their encounters with medical professionals, which are not always good encounters, But again, and I'm categorizing or I'm generalizing. VIPs tend to be very passive and very polite, so they're not going to complain because they're also afraid of things being taken away. If I complain, if things are going to be taken away from me. So everything that the two of you said is very much taken to heart and very much appreciated, and it will continue, and hopefully you will. Whether you are here physically with us or you are, you are far away, you'll always be part of us, and you'll occasionally, reach out and touch us back again. So thank you.
Thank you.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
And join me for another edition of Connecting the Dots.
Please note that the information provided in this show is not a substitute for consulting with an experienced local attorney and receiving counsel based on the facts and circumstances of a particular transaction. To contact Lizbeth, email her at lizbeth@elizabethlmyska.com or call her office at 508-753-7681. We're online at connectingthedots.lawyer. Executive producers, Lizbeth Myska and Jack Peacock. Producers, John Medberry and Bill Hamilton. A production of Elizabeth L. Myska, JD, LLM, in association with Compliments.
Movement. Along with weight loss, it's one of the many ways to fight osteoarthritis pain. For more information on managing pain, go to fightarthritispain.org.